Welcome back to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Thomas.
And we're in a series called 15 Lessons After 15 Years of Marriage. We're at lesson number 9 called Be the Best Spouse. Last week, we talked about loving your spouse unconditionally. And this week, we're essentially talking about how you can be lovable. Because we believe if you want to make a better marriage, you have to make a better you. And the goal to be a better you is to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually.
Right. Like Julie said, that since last week we talked about loving your spouse unconditionally, it's important to make it easy for them to do that by working on yourself to make yourself the best spouse. And we're not talking about this from a competition perspective, not trying to one-up each other, like put the other person down to make yourself better or anything like that. But, just trying to make it easy for them to love you unconditionally.
Continually to work on yourself, just like you did before marriage.
Yeah. So, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, let's start with mentally. So be confident. That's an easy way to start becoming the best version of yourself. Be confident, because confidence is attractive. Don't get that confused, though, with cockiness, because cockiness is not attractive. Putting someone else down to build yourself up is the cocky side of things. And doing that, that really is absolutely unattractive. And, it just doesn't make you look like a very nice and kind person. Mm-hmm. So, and don't also swing so far the other direction where you put yourself down to try and get someone else to build you up, kind of fishing for those compliments like, oh, I'm not any good at this. And, waiting for your spouse to say, oh, yes, you're great at that. What are you talking about? Like, that's also unattractive. It's tiring as a spouse to have to try and keep building your spouse up when you're also trying to make yourself better for them.
I think the goal is like right in the middle, because I know people who are really cocky, and then I know people who are not confident. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, approaching life with this, I know what I know, I'm good at what I'm good at, I am who I am, I look, amazing or whatever. Like it's definitely that mental confidence that you can carry yourself correctly, not too cocky, but that's where the attraction comes in. You're already married, you won them over, but how can you keep being confident in life and all your abilities? Yeah,
like loving yourself from a non-narcissistic point of view.
Yeah.
Loving yourself kind of through the lens that your spouse loves you. I am me. I love me because this is how I was made. This is who I am. Not, I love me above everybody else. That's not, the point of view that you want to take, but loving yourself the way that your spouse does. Another couple of ways is you can stay sharp. Be mindful of what you're reading or listening to or watching, or shouldn't be watching for that matter. Fill your mind with the things that are going to make you a better person, not ideas of what you want to be necessarily. I mean, it can be that, but not unrealistic things. I guess, like reading books that are, so far outside your realm of reality that, may actually hurt you, or, shows that you're watching or something like that. I mean, I can pick on The Bachelor kind of easily with this. I mean, I think that it's called a reality show, but it's so unrealistic, and kind of putting that into your mind is going to be like, that's how I want my marriage to be. We talked about this in a recent episode as well, that, don't think, unrealistically of, what you want something to be. I mean, you can't idolize something else and try and make it what you have, because then you're going to start living in that other area and not being happy where you're at. So be mindful of what you're putting into your mind, so that it's things that can help you better yourselves and not actually impact you in a negative way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also ways to stay sharp, I think we graduate college and we might have we might think we arrived, but maybe you want to go back to school, or maybe it's not going back to school. You could, take a course that helps grow your career, or even a new trade. If you want to learn a new instrument. Remember, we bought guitars because we wanted to learn.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
But we were trying to engage our mind and, come up with a new hobby or a sport, or, you can watch YouTube tutorials to learn something. So it's not just wasted mind space, that you can continue to learn and grow and be a better you.
And I'm going to go a little off topic here for a second. Back in our, I think it was lesson 6, It's Our Money, So Act Like It. We talked about the value of each individual in the marriage, and about, if how some marriages have, like a breadwinner and a caretaker for the kids or for the family. And that's a totally fine model. But there is often this stereotype around that model that there's not as much value for the caretaker. And that's absolutely a terrible stereotype, because just because you may not be bringing in income doesn't mean you're not bringing value. It also doesn't mean, if you're in that scenario of one person being the caretaker and one person being the breadwinner, that as the caretaker, you can't better yourself and try to learn a new skill and try to bring in some income from home, start a business, do something. Not that it's all about money, but, I think it's an easy avenue to talk about in terms of learning a new skill, like we were just mentioning. If you're a caretaker, you don't have to just be that forever until the kids are grown and in school. You can start trying to learn new skills and do things that make you more competent and feel like you're bringing more value to the home, even though you're already bringing a ton of value, but you can increase that even further. Just a little side rant for that situation.
Yeah, that's really good.
And then, make sure that you're checking your mindset. Wake up each day and say, I'm going to make this the best day in my marriage. Maybe you're going through a rough patch in your marriage, and it's easy to wake up and be like, I woke up next to this guy again. And, that's an easy way to approach things, right? And it's harder to wake up and say, you know what? Today's going to be a good day. Today's the day we turn things around. Today's the day that I'm going to, rekindle my love for them. And so, I think that's the harder way to do it, but starting off your day with a positive mindset, even maybe write down some things that you're thankful for in that regard, are going to make it a lot easier to make yourself better, and move forward in a positive way.
Yeah. And next, so that was mentally. And next is emotionally, growing to be the better you emotionally. And I wanted to speak to this because I've been a little bit outspoken on here about me dealing with anxiety recently, over the past couple years, actually, after we had our daughter, who's 2.5 now. And then the last year, we've experienced 2 miscarriages, and we continue to, are trying to conceive a 4th child. And so I've had to really learn to let go of what I can't control, and figure out what I could do to build my confidence, and get my, I don't want to say emotions like under control, but learn to live with what I can and cannot control.
Right. I think that, some of that is based around like things that trigger you and whatnot. So, you've read some books on that. We're reading another book specifically related to arguments, talking about triggers as well. And so I'm sure there's some overlap in arguments and anxiety, and, how those triggers can come into play.
Yeah, I think so. So emotionally is something that, me personally, you can just like push down deep. And when life experiences happen, even with the miscarriages, like things are triggering in me that I didn't deal with from my childhood. Like it may not even have anything to do with the current experience. And so I think just a daily work, I'm still in it, but it's been a daily choice to work on my emotional health and my relationships and our marriage, and really dealing with those traumas and trials and people you need to talk to, things you need to just write down and journal. And just a very practical thing as we're talking about being a better you or building confidence in this. It's not all about looks. I don't want to, go there. Next is physical, but
Yeah.
but in emotional, I had to learn like what does make me feel better. That I wouldn't just want to stay in bed all day and cry. Like, what could I do that helps me feel better? And it sounds so silly, but I feel more confident when I get my nails done. Like, I think I've said that on a previous episode of like, I like going and get a manicure and pedicure. It just helps me like pull up, my big girl pants and like face the day, just feel prettier and confident. For you, it could be putting on makeup. It could be, I don't know, tell me a guy thing. Like
Maybe it's just, getting up and accomplishing a task for the day, like making your bed or something like that. And, just saying like, I have done something productive with my day. I got up and I made the bed, or, washed the car or, whatever. And, I think that's, one of the things that I like, specifically is just having a clean car, which is virtually impossible with kids, by the way. So if you're going to have kids soon and you really like a clean car, lower your expectations a little bit on that, just so you don't disappoint yourself. But that's a thing that I really like, is having a clean car, that, lived in is okay. Not lived in, but like, used,
we eat in the car.
Yeah.
It's
like,
not like
go
spotless.
through life in your car, and so it doesn't have to be perfect, but just trying to keep up with it. Taking care of your things is, I guess, the best way I can put that. That's something that we've been blessed to have, is a car, and so we should do our best to take care of it. And I think that includes cleaning it.
That's an interesting perspective, because I think, if you take care of your things, but you don't take care of yourself, you're out of balance and you're not being the best you. So from, working on your emotions, I would say just work on it, do the work, and don't blame hormones. Like seriously, with, like I said, everything we've experienced with our losses this year have been very hormonal, very emotional. But one of the biggest things is when someone came to take care of me, like help me, and they made a comment like, "You're hormonal," and it was the worst. Like, never say that to your spouse. First of all, it was not Thomas, but never say that to your spouse. Never say that to anyone. But because hearing that like hurt me so bad. Like, yes, duh, I'm hormonal. I also have chosen to not use that as an excuse, but to lean into those emotions of saying like, what is triggering this emotion? What can I do differently today to work on this? Or even if it goes up back to mentally, what can I choose to focus on? And at the end of the day, if you can't do that work alone, it is totally, totally fine to reach out and do, individual counseling or someone to talk to help you through those emotions or those past traumas or triggers to get yourself more emotionally healthy.
Right. And guys, side note, don't use the excuse that you're hormonal either. So
No, you can be emotional over the top. I'm trying not to stereotype it, but that's why I wanted to speak to emotional health.
I also run another podcast on manliness, and so I think I can tell the guys out there, don't say that you're hormonal. It's not nearly a manly thing to do. So, but moving on, let's talk about physically. Take care of yourself for your spouse. That is a big statement in reality. I mean, we get married, we say these vows of, we're going to take care of each other and, better or worse, sickness and health, things like that. But it doesn't mean your spouse has to serve you hand and foot. You have to put in the work for yourself to make it easier for them to do that. And so, a lot of times people get married and then they let themselves go. And, your spouse should understand that things change, bodies change, especially when you have kids.
For sure.
Yeah. So, but they'll be even...
Can I blame the hormones on my body? The physical changes?
No comment. Not in this section. You
Okay.
can't. I mean, we're talking about being your best self, right? So, I think that your spouse is going to find you even more attractive if they see you doing something physically to stay healthy. Now, we're not specifically talking about a specific body image or anything like that, because we understand that people are built differently, and maybe you've had a few kids, and then that changes you, and maybe the dads are giving you kind of sympathy, and they're kind of letting their belly grow too. So we're not really talking about a specific type of body here, but it's more of back to kind of a mindset thing. And, it doesn't have to be going to the gym and, trying to crush it every day and get shredded. But it could be as simple as going for a walk every day, or choosing the stairs, or, having healthier eating habits, choosing better habits, better things to eat, than you have in the past, and, not excessively drinking. And so I think that doing some of those things and showing your spouse that, look, I'm trying to make conscious decisions to be better and want to be on the planet longer with you. If you're if you're drinking a 12-pack each day, and whether that's of beer or soda, it's probably going to kill you sooner. Over a long period of time, if your spouse wants you to be healthy, that's a hard thing to approach, a hard conversation to approach as a spouse, either direction, right? So going to your spouse and saying, hey, I'd like it if you exercised or ate healthier. That's a hard conversation to have. Even as vulnerable as you can get with each other, that's still a hard conversation to have with your spouse. So kind of keeping that conversation off the table and being proactive about it yourself, so your spouse doesn't have to come to you with that conversation, because they are probably coming, number one, from a point of caring about you, but number two, also they still want to stay attracted to you as well. But if you can proactively do something about that and show them that, just the action of that is going to be more attractive to them.
Yeah, I think why we choose health in our marriage is, one, we're keeping up with the kids right now. So it's kind of easy. Like we have twin 7-year-olds and a 2-year-old currently. And we work out, but people, often say like, how'd you lose the baby weight? I'm like, well, I was running after 2 boys. Like, it was easier. But I just never want to kind of fall out of that healthy lifestyle, because even when the kids are grown and out of the house, I want to be able to keep up with my husband and still go on adventures and not just become couch potatoes and our empty nesters. So that's kind of the mindset. It's, again, like Thomas said, it's not about body image, but just living a healthy lifestyle that you can enjoy your marriage and enjoy life even years to come in your old age.
and I would even go as far as saying, like, yes, I think I would even say healthy lifestyle. The words healthy lifestyle for us are probably a little too strong. I think we try to make conscious, healthy decisions when we're able to.
We still eat cookies, our cookies and conversation.
Yeah, and we have 3 kids, so to get 5 of us fed for dinner, sometimes it's drive-through at McDonald's or Wendy's, and that just, we fed our kids, so we accomplished something for the day.
Right.
And so so sometimes it's not necessarily about always making the most healthy decision, but trying to be conscious of it and doing it as often as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going back to mindset. So we have mentally, emotionally, physically, and the last area we think you should be healthy in to be the best spouse is spiritually. A healthy marriage is accepting what you can't change and being the change that you want to see. So you can't force your spouse to have the same spiritual maturity as you, but you also shouldn't be ashamed of your beliefs or hide them from your spouse if they are different or at different levels. We really, really believe that you should be open-minded enough to understand each other's beliefs. Maybe you talked about that before marriage, but we're seeing a lot that, as they live together and grow older together, that there maybe weren't on the same page there. But
Which is totally okay.
Right.
I mean, you can have a marriage founded on two different sets of spiritual beliefs or, lack thereof or whatever. But you just have to kind of walk through that together.
Well, that's if you're open-minded to talking about it with each other and listening and trying from the, coming from the perspective of trying to understand why they believe that way or that they don't believe. I think that kind of helps you grow to become, get on the same page. And you always want to model these things to your kids, so you can still model them to your spouse, but it's not your job to change your spouse. That's why this is be the best spouse, like be the best you. And so, I think, sometimes even when you least expect it, your spouse will lean on your faith and they will appreciate your confidence in this area. For them to grow as well.
Yeah, and some of that's just them knowing that you have their back. And so whatever your beliefs really are, that's okay. It's going to open up that vulnerability for them to know, like you said, I love what you said about listening to them, learning from the perspective of why do you believe this way? Not from a condescending point of view, but genuinely why. I'd love to understand from your point of view. We may still not agree on it. We may still walk away with the same belief structure that we came to the conversation with, but learning why, that's going to make them feel safe with you to understand, like, no, I can still be myself around you. And also, like you said at the end of that statement, they may lean on your faith. If they're struggling, with something and they ask you to kind of help them with that, they know that you're still going to back them up even though you believe in things differently. And you never know, you may get to a point where you're like, hey, I'm praying to my God about this, but I need you to also pray to your God too. Like, I mean, if you have different beliefs, like, let's just kind of cover all of our bases here, kind of a scenario. And that's great. That's a super vulnerable point to get to even ask that question, to say, you know what, I just want to make sure that, you've got my back here. And that vulnerability is going to be key in this scenario. We talk about how vulnerable you have to be to go to just communicate in marriage. We've talked about the vulnerability around finances. This is just another super key area to make sure that you're vulnerable with your spouse in, so that you can both grow in this together, even if you have different beliefs.
Yeah, I think it's also not settling, choosing to not settle. So if you did believe the same thing, which is ideal, but that's why I said that you could be on different levels of spiritual maturity, different areas, different growth points in your life. And so I don't think, the one spouse, not that you should rate each other, but if you just kind of can see maybe more, you understand a little bit more in this area, and you can kind of just cap yourself out because, my spouse is at this level and I'll wait for them to catch up with me. But that's not the point here too. It's just kind of bettering yourself, being consistent with those practices. And then later on another lesson, we'll be talking about growing together. But this one's being the best you, and not to give up on your spiritual beliefs or growing in that spiritual maturity just because you might be different in all these areas, spiritually, physically, emotionally, or mentally.
And to add on to that, lastly, the confidence, circling it back to confidence at the top of this episode, the confidence your spouse will see in you, they will appreciate if you're standing up for what you believe in, no matter what, whether that's, with them or to them or to anybody else. They're going to see that as attractive to say, you know what, I can appreciate that my spouse believes in something different from me and that they're sticking to that and they're not just changing just because we're married. And they're not trying to change me just because we're married. There's something about that too. But, being confident in your beliefs is going to just make you more attractive to them as well. So
absolutely. So now each day in your marriage, you have to work hard and should want to choose to be the best spouse every day, every year for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks again for joining us on this week's podcast. We release an episode every Monday. We'd love for you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Marriage Puzzle, and check out marriagepuzzle.com for more information as well as monthly blog posts there. And if this is your first time listening to us, we encourage you to go back and listen to episodes 1 and 2 of the Marriage Puzzle podcast to hear why we chose the name Marriage Puzzle and hear about our story and catch all the way up to where we are in the 15 years after 15
lessons after 15 years. Yeah, 15 lessons. I got you. Don't worry about it. 15 lessons after 15 years. There's a lot of 15s in there, so it's all good.
There's a lot. So just subscribe so you know where we are, and we'd love for you to leave us a rating.
Yeah, because we're not editing that part out, and you can know that we're genuine.
Yes, we need your help. Thanks for your support. We look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Have a good one.